Hello, welcome back to the Bipolar Yogi podcast. If you're new here, then welcome. This is a storytelling podcast, my life story as it is, raw from me, myself and I. So I would suggest going back to the start and listening in chronological order, unless you're just excited about this episode due to the name or the description or something like that. And if you're here, if you're familiar, then welcome back. Let's continue with some storytelling. This week's been pretty cool. I'm dieting at the moment and gymming, exercising, getting ready for Thailand, heading to Thailand soon to meet one of my best friends. So I'm excited about that and I want to be in my best shape for it. So the diet is on at the moment, watching what I'm eating. It's very important. Trimming down, cutting that belly fat, which is very difficult. I find it very difficult to cut belly fat. I've never in my life really seen my lower abs, and I've gone to the gym since I was around about 16. Yeah, about 15, 16 when I was at school. I started going to the gym and I've been consistent sort of on and off, but the past couple of years, the past 2 years now, have been pretty consistent as I've had a lot of weight to lose. So I'm pretty much in the best shape I've ever been in now, and still struggling to see those lower abs. So hopefully we'll get there. Got a good diet to follow, so we'll see. Anyway, let's go back in time, back to age 15, selling drugs. I've just realised at this point in my life that I have this keen desire to help other people. If people are in need, if people are in trouble, then I want to help. That was something that I found through the experience of trying to save this man's life. So yeah, that sparked something inside me. That something stayed a little bit quiet for some time, but it was always there. It was always part of me, who I saw myself as, somebody who would always help, so who would look out for other people. So at this point in my life, it's sort of the beginning of my rave culture. My introduction into the rave culture, and I'm partying all the time. School at this point was kind of rocky as anything. I would turn up to all of my lessons stoned. I was smoking weed in the morning before school. I was smoking weed on my paper round. There was one of my friends actually, he was a bit older and he used to work, and I would see him when I was delivering my papers. He'd be stood waiting to get picked up for work. So I'd always bump into him, stop, smoke a joint, carry on delivering my newspapers, smoke another joint, go to school, stoned as anything. Then as soon as I got a break, go out, smoke a joint, go to my lessons, go out, smoke a joint at lunch, maybe two, go to my lessons in the afternoon, and then smoke weed all evening. Like I say, funding that through selling weed myself. And I saw myself as a massive stoner. I was a huge stoner. That was me. I was blazed all the time. There was this one time I had a maths lesson. I'd have the maths lesson first period, and I went in and I was super high. I sat down next to my friend and he looked at me and was like, "Are you baked?" And I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm always baked. Of course I am." And he was like, "You know we've got a maths test." And I was like, "Oh shit." However, me being great at maths, the maths geek, the self-proclaimed maths geek that I was, I managed to get about 98% on that test. So that was good. As you know, we're heading into GCSEs at that point. So yeah, I was, you know, it was rocky. I was relaxed a lot of the time, but other times I was getting into trouble. For example, for smoking weed at lunchtime, and we would smoke down this alleyway near the school, and the local residents would complain, and then we'd get into trouble, usually with the guys in the year above. There were a few people in my year, in my classes, that would smoke weed with me as well, but mainly it was hanging out with the older boys and getting into trouble every now and again. But yeah, outside of school, started raving, started going to parties. So I kind of left my field parties behind with the people in my year and started hanging out with older people. There was the group that I hung around with. Some of my friends owned their own sound system, so it was a big drum and bass culture. Everybody was into drum and bass, and so that was the music that I kind of delved into. And of course, taking ecstasy while listening to music was fantastic. So we'd go to all sorts of parties. One of these parties was quite funny. It was a full circle moment for me. I mentioned on a previous episode that my mum used to hang out with a biker group, and they stayed at a pub in a town nearby. That was like their base. And one night my friends were putting on a big drum and bass night at this place, and so I went there at the age of 15 and got absolutely wasted, was taking loads of drugs. Gosh, I think I remember actually I must have done some ketamine, I think, because I was so out of it, I couldn't see where I was going. Yeah, so at this point I was introduced to ketamine. Now, there was a stage where I was not interested in ketamine, and it seemed like a really disgusting drug to me. And then for some reason, again, my perception changed, and I tried it. And yeah, I took it at this party at this pub, where the pub that I grew up at, basically, and people had to hold me. I couldn't walk, I couldn't see anything, my whole vision was blurry. But I just remember some people stopped me and they said, "Can we get a photo? We're going to put this on Rate My Gurn." I used to be a massive gurner, and that's where you're like clenching your jaw as you're on drugs. I think I read somewhere that this was to do with the changes in like the neurotransmitters, like the serotonin and the dopamine. They're rapidly changing, they're going up and down as you're taking drugs, and so these big changes trigger a reflex in the jaw, which makes you gurn. Don't hold me to that. I think I read that somewhere once upon a time. Fact check it. So it was just a big party culture. The local city that I grew up just outside of, my friends were putting on a night there once, and like I said, I was only 15 at the time, and they were putting on a drum and bass night, so they ran the sound system, and basically I turned up and they just put me on the guest list, told the guys that I was DJing, so it was like obviously an over 18s night. And yeah, I thought this was great, you know, I'm 15 years old, I'm going clubbing. I was kind of on that borderline of that not being possible. Like, I don't think that a lot of 15-year-olds manage to get into clubs these days, especially not without any ID. So I thought this was great. I could just walk in, was drinking, taking drugs, fantastic. Meeting lots of people, and you get very deep when you're on drugs, and you become friends with people very quickly. You bond over lines and bombs of ecstasy and all sorts of things. So it was a fun time in my life. Go to free parties in forests. This one time we had a party at that same pub, and me and a friend, we ended up, party finished maybe 2 a.m, and we ended up meeting these strangers, and they said, "We're going to a free party." Jumped in this random people's car. I think I was in one car and my friend was in another, and they just took us to a free party. I don't know, we could have been driving for hours. I have no idea, no concept of time. And we got to this free party and the police were there and they shut it down. So we just had to turn around. And honestly, I was so off my face. I have no idea how, but they managed to drop me off at the top of my street. And then I walked home. I remember walking into my garden, and for some reason, I went into the shed. And I think I just I don't know why I did that. I just went in the shed, and maybe I was just sleeping in the shed. So some funny times, some crazy times, some weird times. But there was this one night, I remember this one very clearly. I went to this club, and this was an under 18s night actually. So I was 15 years old, and one of my friends, same age, maybe she's a year older, she was DJing at this club at this under 18s night. I went along. I remember picking up pills, maybe 15 pills, 20 pills. Before I went, I wanted them because I knew that we were going to the club and then we were going to go back to her house afterwards for an after party, and we were going to stay up and we were going to rave all weekend and whatever. And I also had 15 grams of weed on me at the same time. So I went to this club, I would keep them in my pants. I was so cocky, so confident about just having drugs on me all the time. You know, I would just walk around with loads of drugs on me like it was nothing. And yeah, we met some people in there. There's lots of people that we knew, some guys from our school, and one of them asked me to buy some pills. So I went into the toilets with him, and he went into one cubicle, I went into the other. As I was walking into the toilets, two guys walked out, and they were really giving it as if they had just been sniffing some drugs in the toilets. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. So we went in, and I sold him a pill, just put it over the top of the cubicle, whatever, and then I'm just there putting my stuff away, just putting it back in my pants, and bang! Bouncers fucking come in and they bang on my door. What are you doing in there? What are you doing in there? The cubicles, you couldn't lock them. They take the locks off in the clubs for this exact reason. And I started shitting myself. I put them down my trousers. I was wearing a pair of I had my pants on, then a pair of joggers, and then a pair of jeans over the top, right? And think my jean line was just below the joggers, and I just managed, right, to put the drugs inside my joggers, okay? So they were sticking out over the top of the jeans, and I was shitting myself. This bouncer's there. What are you doing? What have you got? Show me your drugs, whatever. And I'm I've got nothing. Absolutely shitting it. Anyway, he eventually finds them. He's you can see it sticking out, this bulge down my pants. Pulls them out, and he's what the fuck? He's mate, if this was 1 or 2 pills, I could have flushed it down the toilet. He's we're gonna have to phone the police. I was fuck. I am shitting it. Yeah, 15 years old, right? I'm fucked on ecstasy at the time. Okay, my heart is racing. And I go into this back room, and the club owner's there, and he's saying what are you doing? Why are you selling these drugs? He's you're selling drugs to kids, this is an under 18s night. I was mate, I am a child. I'm only 15, but they were really trying to scare me, which fair play. And then he said, some girls died tonight. She died from taking your pills. And I was no, I don't think so, mate. I haven't really sold to any girls. But I could see what he was doing, he's trying to scare me. I get it, I understand. It's dangerous, you don't know what you're buying, you don't know what you're selling. Obviously me being fucked on ecstasy, I was don't worry mate, I'll try everything before I sell it to people. I thought I was a great drug dealer. I thought, yeah, I'll try my stuff before I sell it to people. So I'm absolutely shitting it in this cubicle. No, we're out of the cubicle, we're in the back room, I'm shitting it, and then he says, the police are on their way, and he says, they're going to go to your house, they're going to search your house, where do you live, who do you live with? And I told him where I live and who I live with, and he knew my stepdad, he knew who my stepdad was, and he started asking questions, is it this person? I said, yeah, that's him, and he said, oh fuck. So he knew my stepdad from a long time ago, and he knew that my stepdad had done time himself. This was something that I didn't really know as well. So he asked me for their number. He said, what's his number? And basically they phoned my mum. I think I gave him my house number because I didn't have my stepdad's number at that time. I would say we didn't really get on. So I phoned my mum, and I knew, like, I was sharing a room with my younger brother. And so in my room, I had a bookshelf, and behind the bookshelf I had a safe, and in this safe had some cash, had some more drugs. And so the phone call was to tip them off, to say, look, your house is going to get raided, get rid of anything. Just off the off chance that maybe my stepdad might have had something, I don't know. So that happened. My mum went into my room, she hid everything, luckily. So the police went along to my house, they didn't find anything. This caused a lot of anxiety for me. I went and stayed the night in a cell that night. My mum had to come and pick me up. She was so mad. She knew that I was like taking drugs. She didn't know that I was selling them. She couldn't believe it, her face, and it made me feel sick that I had made my mum feel like that. Like, I felt physically sick. I was obviously still fucked on ecstasy as well. So this was scary, and then it began to haunt me. So this was like just before my 16th birthday, and now the police do not do things quickly. So they start investigating, they take my phone. Obviously my phone's got loads of texts. I wasn't very discreet, very obvious. So yeah, this started to scare me. It was hanging over my shoulders. I got my phone taken off of me, got all my drugs taken away. Still had some drugs because my safe got saved. Still had some money, so at least I didn't get fully robbed. It was something that just sat on my shoulders. Like I say, with school at the time, I was just heading towards my GCSEs. So yeah, I was just about to turn 16, do my GCSEs. And like I say, I was only really getting into trouble due to drugs. There was one time actually, I bought a ½ ounce on my break, and I had to take it into school. ½ ounce of fresh weed. It was super stinky, and I had PE that day, and obviously I was in the changing rooms and I stunk out the whole changing rooms, right? And one of my some guy in my year went and told a teacher, or even the teacher went in there actually, probably the PE teacher went in there. Anyway, I was in PE and the teachers came and got me. They took me into a room and they told one of my friends to go and get my bag. So my friend went and got my bag, they bring it to me, and I'm in this room with this member of staff, and she says, get changed and then we're going to search you. I was like, oh right. So she handed me my bag with my clothes in, my weed in, and I managed to stuff the weed down my trousers, and that was such a near miss. So I'd already had a close call prior to getting caught by the police in school. And so school knew what I was doing. I'm pretty sure they were aware, but they hadn't caught me, so it didn't really affect my school life, which was lucky. I was very fortunate. So I went on to complete my GCSEs. This is like pre-sixth form. I don't know if you're listening from the UK, you understand. If you're listening from another country, it's just exams, okay? At 16, you take exams. So I had my maths teacher, right? One teacher who was very fond of me, she was my teacher. Another teacher I didn't get on too well with, and I knew him. He was also the head of the sixth form. These two teachers had made a bet. My teacher told me that they made a bet. The one that I didn't get on with, he reckoned that I could only get an A in maths. He reckoned that because I smoke too much weed, I misbehave, I don't pay enough attention, I could only get an A. My teacher believed that I could get an A star. So I knew they had that bet. And yeah, when it came to crunch time, came to my GCSEs, I sat the exams, and lo and behold, I managed to get an A star in maths. And I actually didn't do too bad in all my other subjects as well. I didn't revise, and I did really well. 1 A star, 1 A, 4 Bs, 3 Cs, and a G. Now, the G was the only one that I failed. I think A, B, C is a pass, anything below that is a fail, G is the lowest letter, and then it goes to U, which is ungraded. Now, one of my exams was ungraded, and this G was for history. I took history because when I was 12 years old, I had this whole kerfuffle with the Prime Minister, and I was a bit of an activist, a bit of a socialist, and people were saying, you're going to be the next Prime Minister, all of this kind of stuff, and I was like, yeah, that would be really cool, maybe I could run the country. I quite enjoy leadership roles, I quite enjoy leading people into battle, whether that's a protest about the youth centres or whatever else. So I took history because one of my teachers said, if you want to do politics, you've got to do history. And I enjoyed history to begin with, but it was maybe, 6 months in to starting GCSE history, and the school changed the exam board. So what that meant for me was that the whole exam system changed, and the exam styles changed, the questions changed. I'm a maths person. I don't enjoy writing very much. I could do it, I was good at it, I got a B and a C or 2 Bs in English literature and English language. So, I can speak English, I guess. I can write it, I can read it, whatever. But I didn't enjoy writing long, answered, paragraph, essay style questions, especially not under exam conditions. So I got used to this style that they originally taught us, which were quite shorthand questions. There weren't many long answer questions. And then they came along and they said, look, we've got some news for you guys. This is going to be good for some of you and not so good for others. And I thought, oh God, it's not going to be great for me then, is it? And they changed the exam board. So the exam style questions went from being short answers to long answers. I didn't enjoy this. I basically gave up on it. I said, that's it. I'm not doing it. I'm not learning. I'm not relearning this. I've had enough. I was pissed off with them. So that was it. I didn't bother. And I think we had 1 piece of coursework and 1 exam. The coursework I did. It was alright. And then the exam, I just sat there and I just wrote a letter to the examiner, basically saying exactly what I've just said. I wasn't happy with the exam. They changed the exam board. I'm pissed off. I used bad language, and I got a letter a few months later saying that they graded my exam with a U, ungradable, because I used bad language. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this one, it doesn't matter. I passed all of my other GCSEs. I got an A in chemistry, B's in biology, English, something else. I also did PE, and physics I got a C. Didn't enjoy the teacher there. But anyway, I basically came out with really good grades for somebody who went to all of their lessons stoned as anything and didn't really pay much attention. So that was cool. Again, knew that I was good at exams. This gave me a confidence boost in the education, and it meant that I could study at sixth form as well, which was kind of pre-university. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do at university, if I wanted to go to university at that point, whatever. So I went on to study sixth form, and the subjects that I chose were maths, chemistry, psychology and sociology. Maths and chemistry are obviously the 2 that I did the best in. I got an A star in maths at GCSE and an A in chemistry. And at that time, I enjoyed chemistry, and I wanted to learn how to make drugs. I wanted to learn how to make my own ecstasy. I thought that would be great, wouldn't it? If I could just make my own ecstasy, synthesize it myself. I thought that would be fantastic. So that was kind of part of the reason that I took chemistry. And then psychology, I was interested in the mind. Sociology, I thought that was pretty similar. That was kind of spoke about, kind of what it meant to come from different social classes, society. It's basically the psychology of society, isn't it? So I found those interesting, and those were what I wanted to study. Now, as I was transitioning from year 11 to year 12, from GCSEs to sixth form, I had this court case looming over me. So the police had interviewed me, they'd gone through my phone, they asked me about messages, who's this, what does this mean, blah, blah, blah. My solicitor told me to say no comment, so I said no comment to every single question in the interview. Finally, I had a court date, and I think I had maybe two court dates. I think the first one was just a hearing. Basically, while this was happening was just as I was starting sixth form, and I kept having to tell my teachers that I wasn't going to be in for a particular reason that I didn't want to disclose. And like I say, the maths teacher that had a bet against me, that was also the head of sixth form, he basically came to me one day and he said, "What's going on? Like, why do you need this time off? Like, is everything all right?" And I was just honest with him. I said, "Look, I got arrested. I've been selling drugs, and I've got to go to court. The next court date, I've got to pack my bag, and I might go to prison." It was very scary. That's what they told me. It was for sentencing. So I think I went to the first court, and it was the hearing and the plead, and I pleaded guilty. I was like, well, yeah, I was selling drugs. You caught me. So I pleaded guilty, and then I had a sentencing. So my solicitor told me, like, you need to pack your bag. You could go to prison. This is a crime that comes with a custodial sentence. Like, the maximum sentence was like 7 years or something in prison. So I was pretty frightened, pretty scared, and I confided in my teacher. I told him all about this, not really knowing how he would respond. He basically turned around and said, I'll come to court with you, and I will speak up for you. And this was pretty amazing for me. I didn't know how to respond, really. This was a teacher that I wasn't getting on with for a long time. However, I think the teachers saw kind of where I'd come from, my journey, and how well I did academically. That had kind of blown them all away. And so a lot of them wanted to put time into me. And I think at this point I had sort of chilled out, so I wasn't really getting into trouble anymore. I'd grown out of that, the messing about, whatever. I was now in school to learn, in school to study, as I was going into sixth form. My complete aura had changed over the course of a couple of years. And whether this was getting arrested or whether this was going through puberty, maturing, I think it was a combination of all of these things. So my teacher basically said, I'll come to court with you, I'll speak on your behalf. I went to my solicitor, I told my solicitor, and they said, wow, this never happens. Like, to have somebody, an academic, a teacher, a professional, come in and give a character reference is completely out of the ordinary. It never happens. So I was a little bit less scared about going to court. I had my teacher on my side, who was going to come with me. And yeah, the court date came along. I packed my bag. I was ready to go to prison. Went in there. I think I had the opportunity to speak, to say something to the magistrates. So I sat before 3 magistrates, and it was up to them to decide my fate on that day. It was like everything was out of my control. My whole universe, my whole life, my whole future was out of my control. It was down to 3 magistrates, 3 strangers that I did not know, who did not know me. And so all I could do was apologise, show that I knew that I'd done something wrong, I wasn't going to continue this lifestyle. Then my teacher spoke, and they asked him questions, As he, what type of person is he? And my teacher basically just built the best picture of me ever. And I was so grateful. And then the magistrates went away, and that was their time to make a decision. So I went back into the courtroom, sat down, and they decided the verdict. They were going to give me a 1-year youth referral order, which meant I had to have meetings every week. I had about 30 hours of community service to get on with, and a drug rehabilitation program. So I had to meet a drug counsellor every week as well. I had the biggest sigh of relief. This was the best outcome I could have ever hoped for. And I really put it down to my teacher coming along and giving me a character reference. At 16 years old, I watched my whole future be destroyed in my mind. And then, I guess the universe helped guide me out of that darkness and into a much brighter place. So at this time, I continued to take drugs and to sell them a little bit less. I wasn't being as stupid, but I was still selling them every now and again. I think maybe I sort of slowed down, and I wasn't like a regular drug dealer. I would buy pills if I was going to a party on a big level, but I stopped really selling them and didn't really define myself as a drug dealer anymore. Not that I was ever any good at selling drugs. I think that worked in my favour in the court, actually, that I told them that I was not profiting from this. I was literally just smoking loads of weed. So I was grateful to my teacher. I went into sixth form, 16 years old, and I had a criminal record behind me, but it was a 1-year referral order, which meant that after that I didn't have to declare it for a lot of things. After the year was over, it was a spent conviction. So it's no longer on my record. It's no longer comes up on a DBS check or anything like this. It's nothing serious. It was just a lesson learned at that age. And from that, I didn't really sell drugs anymore. Just on the odd occasion. I still smoked a lot of weed. My life started to change a little bit from there. I'd focus a little bit more on school. I'm going to wrap this up here. It's an intense and emotional place to dive back into that. And it's interesting how talking about my past experiences and remembering all of these times, all of these things that I went through, that just the normal, ordinary, average person typically doesn't go through all of these things. Maybe one or two, but I was really rocketed into life for the first 16 years. Absolutely crazy to have lived so many different lifetimes already. Was unbelievable. But all in all, it's built the character that I am today. It's built a lot of things, really. So thank you again for listening. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope you have a lovely day. Hope you enjoy whatever the universe is bringing you today, in this moment right now. And I'll see you again soon. Don't forget to share this with your family and friends if they are interested. If you think it will help somebody, if you think somebody is heading down the wrong path and maybe they need to understand the reality of these situations, because I think it's nice that I've experienced all of these things and I can tell other people. Like somebody once said to me, we live vicariously through each other, and I didn't know what that meant for a long time. However, when we tell stories to each other and we tell it on such a level where somebody can really feel and understand and know what we've been through, then they can live through us. You can live through me, I can live through you. So I've made mistakes, I've gained experience, so not everybody has to. So you might not have to. It might be a sign that you stop doing what you're doing, you change your course, whatever it is. Don't make the same mistakes that I did. But yeah, that's the Bipolar Yogi. Peace.